The stars burned cold and distant as the colony ship Meadowlark drifted through the endless void of space. Captain Sarah Morrison stood on the bridge and watched the navigation screens with tired but happy eyes. They were only 3 days away from their new home, a beautiful garden world called New Eden. The Meadowlark carried 3,000 souls across the darkness between stars. Families who had sold everything they owned for a chance at a new beginning. Scientists eager to study alien ecosystems. Teachers ready to build schools. And most precious of all, 847 children who dreamed of running through meadows under an alien sun. Captain Morrison smiled as she thought about little Lily Chun, the 7-year-old daughter of her chief engineer. The girl had become something of a mascot for the entire ship. Every morning, she would visit the bridge and ask the same question with wonder in her eyes. "Are we there yet, Captain?" And every morning, Morrison would kneel down and say, "Almost, little one." Almost, but they would never reach New Eden. Not on this day. The alarm sirens screamed to life without warning. Red lights flooded every corridor of the ship. Morrison spun toward her tactical officer with her heart pounding against her ribs. "Report. What is happening?" 6 vessels dropping out of hyperspace, Captain. They are Dominion warships. Warlord-class cruisers. Morrison felt ice spread through her veins. The Dominion of Eternal Stars was one of the oldest powers in the galaxy. They controlled hundreds of worlds and commanded fleets that could darken the skies of entire planets. Humanity had only recently joined the galactic community, and their small territory bordered Dominion space. "This is contested territory," Morrison whispered to herself. "We have every right to be here." But rights meant nothing to those with power. The communication screen flickered to life, and Morrison found herself staring at a nightmare. Warlord Scythe of the Dominion stood before her, his scaled face twisted into an expression of cruel amusement. His 4 eyes studied her like a predator examining prey. "Human vessel," his voice rumbled like grinding stones. "You have entered space claimed by the Dominion of Eternal Stars. You will surrender your ship and all passengers immediately. Resistance will result in destruction." Morrison stood tall despite the fear clawing at her chest. "Warlord Scythe, this corridor is designated as open space by the Galactic Council. We are a civilian vessel carrying colonists. We have no weapons and pose no threat." Scythe laughed, and the sound made Morrison's skin crawl. "The Galactic Council means nothing out here, human. Your species wishes to claim a seat among the great powers? Then you must learn your place. Your passengers will serve as leverage in our negotiations with Earth. Surrender now, or watch your ship become dust." Morrison looked at her crew. She saw fear in their eyes, but she also saw determination. These were good people who had trusted her to lead them to safety. "And if we refuse?" she asked, her voice steady. Scythe's 4 eyes narrowed. "Then I will board your vessel by force, and I will make examples of your people until the rest learn obedience. The choice is yours, human. You have 60 seconds." The connection cut off, leaving Morrison standing in terrible silence. She turned to her first officer, a grizzled veteran named Thomas Webb. "Tom, we cannot outrun them. We cannot fight them. What options do we have?" Webb shook his head slowly. "None, Captain. Those ships could tear us apart in seconds. If we surrender, maybe we can negotiate. Maybe Earth can send help." Morrison closed her eyes and made the hardest decision of her life. "Open a channel. Tell them we surrender." The Dominion troops boarded the Meadowlark within the hour. They came in waves, hundreds of armored soldiers with weapons that hummed with deadly energy. They herded the colonists into the main cargo bay like animals, forcing families to sit on the cold metal floor. Lily Chun clung to her mother's hand, her small body trembling with fear. "Mama, who are these people? Why are they so angry?" Her mother pulled her close. "Hush, Little one, everything will be okay. Just stay quiet and stay close to me." But everything would not be okay. Warlord Scythe walked among the humans, his massive form towering over them. He studied their faces with contempt, seeing nothing but weakness and fear. These creatures called themselves a spacefaring species. They were barely more than animals. "Pathetic," he growled. "Your species speaks of equality and rights, but look at you, huddled on the floor like frightened vermin. Perhaps Earth will think twice before challenging Dominion authority when they see how easily their people break." One man stood up, his face red with anger. "You cannot do this. We are protected under galactic law. The Council will hear of this." Scythe moved faster than seemed possible for his size. His armored fist struck the man across the face and sent him crashing to the ground. Blood sprayed across the floor as children screamed and adults shouted in horror. "Let this be a lesson," Scythe announced to the crowd. "Resistance will be punished. Defiance will be crushed. You belong to the Dominion now, but humans are strange creatures. Where other species might cower and submit, humans often become more defiant when pushed." More colonists began to rise, forming a wall between the soldiers and the children. Scythe felt something he had not experienced in centuries: surprise. These weak creatures were actually challenging him. "You dare?" he hissed. The humans did not answer with words. They answered by standing their ground, by refusing to let the soldiers reach their young. Scythe's rage exploded. "Discipline them. Show them what happens to those who defy the Dominion." What happened next would be broadcast across the galaxy. Dominion soldiers waded into the crowd with weapons and fists. They struck anyone who resisted, and when the humans still refused to part, the soldiers began grabbing children. Little Lily Chun was torn from her mother's arms. A soldier twice her size threw her against the metal bulkhead with terrible force. Her small body crumpled to the floor and did not move. Her mother's scream echoed through the cargo bay, a sound of pure anguish that would haunt everyone who heard it. Scythe smiled at the chaos. This footage would show Earth and the entire galaxy that humanity was nothing special. They would beg for mercy, agree to any terms, and the Dominion would gain another servant species. He ordered his communications officer to broadcast the footage to every human world. "Let them see," he commanded. "Let them understand their place in the universe." The transmission reached Earth within hours. It spread across every news network, every social media platform, every screen on the planet. Billions of humans watched as their children were beaten by alien soldiers. Scythe expected panic. He expected governments to fall over themselves offering surrender. He expected humanity to break. He did not understand what he had done. He did not realize that he had just signed the death warrant for his entire civilization. For humans have one rule above all others, written not in law but in blood and bone and the deepest parts of their souls. You do not harm their children. You never, ever harm their children. And Warlord Scythe was about to learn exactly what happens when you break that sacred rule. Ambassador Kethral of the Dominion sat in his luxurious office on the diplomatic station, orbiting the neutral world of Centaur Prime. He was considered one of the finest political minds in Dominion history, a master of manipulation and negotiation who had brought dozens of species to their knees without firing a single shot. When he received the footage from Warlord Scythe, he felt a warm glow of satisfaction spread through his chest. This was perfect. The humans would be terrified, desperate, willing to agree to any terms. Their precious seat on the Galactic Council would become a tool for Dominion interests. He prepared his demands carefully. Territory concessions, trade agreements weighted heavily in Dominion favor, military access to human space. The list was long and harsh, designed to humiliate humanity and establish them firmly as a servant species. Kethril opened a communication channel to Earth's embassy and prepared to deliver his ultimatum. But the channel was dead. He tried again and received only silence. He contacted the human trade delegation on Station 12, but they did not respond. He reached out to every human diplomat, every trade representative, every cultural attaché across Dominion space. Nothing. Absolute silence. For 3 days, Kethril tried everything he could think of. He sent messages, made threats, offered small concessions. The humans simply did not respond. Their ships had vanished from Dominion ports. Their embassy stood empty. It was as if humanity had simply ceased to exist. On the 4th day, Kethril began to feel something unfamiliar crawling up his spine. It took him a moment to recognize it because he had not experienced it in decades. It was fear. He decided to consult with species who had more experience dealing with humans. Perhaps they understood this strange silence. Perhaps they could explain what the humans were planning. His first call was to Ambassador Vailana of the Valari Collective. The Valari were an ancient and wise species who had been among the first to make contact with humanity. Surely they would have insight. Vailana's face appeared on his screen, and Kethril immediately noticed something wrong. The usually calm and composed ambassador looked pale, her multiple eyes wide with an emotion he could not quite identify. "Kethril," she said before he could even speak. "Tell me the footage I saw was fabricated. Tell me your forces did not actually harm human children." The Dominion ambassador frowned in confusion. Of course it was real. It was meant to demonstrate Dominion power and break human resistance. A standard psychological operation. Vailana made a sound that his translator rendered as a gasp of horror. "Standard? You call that standard? Kethril, do you have any idea what you have done? I have brought a minor species to heal. Humanity will soon learn their place in the galactic order." "Their place?" Vailana's voice rose with something approaching panic. "Kethril, you need to listen very carefully. Release those hostages immediately. Return every child unharmed. Offer reparations, apologies, whatever they want. Do it now, before it is too late." Kethril laughed at her obvious fear. "You overestimate these humans. They are a young species with a small fleet and limited territory. They pose no threat to the Dominion." "You fool!" Vailana shouted, all diplomatic composure forgotten. "We have studied humanity for decades. We have read their history, analyzed their wars, examined their psychology. They are not what they appear to be." "And what exactly do they appear to be?" "They appear soft and friendly and cooperative. They smile and trade and talk of peace. But that is a mask, Kethril. Beneath that mask is something ancient and terrible. Something they keep chained through constant effort and willpower. And you just released those chains." Kethril felt his amusement fading. "Explain yourself." Humans spent their entire existence fighting each other. Before they reached space, they killed millions of their own kind in conflicts over territory, resources, ideology. They developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet. They are the most naturally violent species we have ever encountered. Then why do they act so peaceful now? Because they choose to. Every single day, they make a conscious choice to suppress their violent instincts. They channel their aggression into sports and business and art. They've learned to control the beast within them. But there are certain things that break that control completely. Vailana leaned closer to the screen, her eyes burning with intensity. "Harm their children, and you will see what humans truly are. You will see what happens when they stop choosing peace." Kethril ended the call with a dismissive wave, but her words lingered in his mind. He decided to seek a second opinion and contacted Trade Minister Broknath of the Broknath Empire. The Broknaths were warriors themselves, one of the few species to have actually fought a war against humanity. If anyone understood human military capabilities, it would be them. Broknath's scarred face appeared on screen, and when he heard why Kethro was calling, he actually laughed. But it was not a laugh of amusement. It was bitter and dark and filled with something like pity. You attacked their children? Broknath shook his massive head slowly. Then you are already dead, Ambassador. You simply have not realized it yet. The Broknath defeated humanity in the border wars, Kethro protested. Your species proved that humans can be beaten. Defeated them? Is that what your historians told you? Broknath leaned forward with a grim expression. We killed 30,000 human soldiers in that war. 30,000 of their warriors fell to our weapons. And do you know what happened? You won! We survived. Broknath corrected him. The war ended because both sides agreed to stop fighting. We thought we had taught humanity a lesson about challenging the Broknath Empire. He paused, and his voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. But we only killed their soldiers. Adults who had chosen to fight. And still, we saw what they were capable of when properly motivated. What did you see? I saw human pilots fly damaged ships directly into our command vessels. I saw wounded soldiers refuse to die until they had taken 10 of ours with them. I saw a species that treats war not as a last resort, but as a natural state temporarily interrupted by peace. Broknath's eyes met Kethro's through the screen. And that was when we only killed their soldiers. The old warrior shook his head again. You harmed their children, Kethro. You did not attack warriors who chose to fight. You attacked innocents. You attacked their future. There is no force in this galaxy that will save you from what comes next. On the 5th day, a single transmission reached every government in the galaxy. It came from Earth and contained only 2 words. We're coming. Kethro stared at those words on his screen, and for the first time in his long career, he truly understood that he had made a terrible mistake. But it was far too late for understanding. The humans were coming, and they were bringing something with them that the galaxy had never seen. They were bringing their rage. Earth had been silent for 5 days, but that did not mean Earth had been idle. In the great city of Geneva, the leaders of every human nation gathered in a chamber that had not been used in over a century. This was the Hall of Unity, built after the resource wars that had nearly destroyed human civilization. It was meant for one purpose, and one purpose only: to unite humanity against an external threat. President Chen Wei of the Eastern Coalition stood at the podium and looked out at the assembled leaders. His granddaughter Lily was among the children on the Meadowlark. The footage of her being thrown against that wall played on an endless loop in his mind. You have all seen what they did to our children, he said, his voice steady despite the fire burning in his heart. You have all seen the Dominion's message to humanity. They believe we are weak. They believe we will bow and scrape and beg for mercy. He paused and let the silence fill the chamber. They are wrong. The room erupted in thunderous applause. Men and women who had been political rivals for decades stood shoulder to shoulder, united by something stronger than any ideology or national interest. For 200 years, we have hidden ourselves from the galaxy, Chung continued. We showed them merchants and diplomats and scientists. We let them believe that we had evolved beyond our violent past. We let them think us soft. He slammed his fist on the podium. We did this because we feared what would happen if the galaxy saw what we truly are. We feared becoming conquerors like the species that came before us. We chose peace because we knew what we were capable of in war. His voice dropped to a cold whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the chamber. But they have made that choice for us. They hurt our children. They laughed while our little ones screamed. And now they will learn why humanity keeps its true nature hidden. Prime Minister Morrison of the Atlantic Union rose to speak. Her own nephew was among the hostages. What do you propose, President Chun? War with the Dominion means war with one of the oldest powers in the galaxy. They have 1,000 worlds and 10,000 ships. Then we will burn every world and sink every ship. A voice called from the back. General James Blackwood of the American territories stepped forward. For 60 years, we have maintained the emergency fleet in secret. Ships designed not for exploration or trade, but for one purpose: to defend humanity against any threat. 2,000 vessels hidden in the asteroid fields of our outer systems. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Very few people knew about the emergency fleet. It was humanity's darkest secret, a reminder that despite all their talk of peace, humans had never truly stopped preparing for war. 2,000 ships against 10,000? Someone asked. Blackwood smiled, and there was nothing friendly in that expression. Our ships were designed by the same species that invented the atomic bomb, the cruise missile, and weapons that could end all life on our planet. Every vessel in the emergency fleet carries technology that we deem too dangerous to reveal to the galaxy. Do you really think numbers will save the Dominion? The vote was unanimous. For the first time since the Resource Wars, humanity would fight as one. Across Earth and all human colonies, the call went out. Factories that had been converted to civilian use began producing weapons and ammunition. Shipyards that had been building cargo vessels started assembling warships with terrifying speed. Every resource, every worker, every ounce of human creativity turned toward a single goal. Veterans who had sworn never to fight again kissed their families goodbye and reported to recruitment centers. Young people who had never known war lined up by the millions, eager to defend their species. Scientists worked around the clock to develop new weapons, new shields, new ways to hurt the enemy. But it was not just soldiers and scientists who answered the call. Teachers and doctors and farmers all contributed what they could. Grandmothers knitted socks for soldiers, while grandfathers taught young people how to shoot. Children too young to fight collected supplies and sent messages of support to the troops. Humanity had become a single organism with a single purpose. At the heart of this awakening stood Admiral Wei Chun, President Chun's older sister and Lily's grandmother. She had retired from the military 20 years ago, hoping to spend her remaining years in peace. But when she saw the footage of her granddaughter being hurt, something inside her changed. She stood on the bridge of the Dreadnought Reckoning, the flagship of the emergency fleet. Around her, 2,000 warships hummed with deadly potential. Each one carried enough firepower to devastate a planet. Admiral, her first officer, reported, "All ships report ready for departure. The fleet awaits your orders." Wei Chun looked out at the stars through the main view screen. Somewhere out there, her granddaughter was suffering. Somewhere out there, monsters were hurting human children and laughing about it. "Open a channel to the fleet," she commanded. Her image appeared on every screen of every ship. 2 million sailors and soldiers watched as their admiral prepared to speak. 60 years ago, my grandfather fought in the Resource Wars. He told me stories about the horrors of that conflict, about the cities that burned and the millions who died. He made me promise that I would never let humanity fall into that darkness again. She paused, her eyes hard as steel. Today, I break that promise, because there is something worse than war, something worse than death. It is standing by while our children are hurt and doing nothing. Her voice rose with righteous fury. We did not want this war. We have spent generations trying to be better, trying to prove that humanity could rise above its violent nature. But they did not give us a choice. They took our children and they hurt them and they broadcast it to the galaxy as entertainment. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice never wavered. So now we show them what happens when you awaken the monster that humanity keeps chained. Now we show them why every species in the galaxy should fear us. Now we show them what human parents do to those who harm their young." She raised her fist high. "No Dominion soldier who touched our children will survive this war. No Dominion commander who gave the orders will escape justice. We will tear their fleets apart. We will burn their bases to ash. And when we are done, the galaxy will know that you never ever harm human children." The fleet erupted in cheers that echoed across the void of space. "Set course for Dominion space," Admiral Chun commanded. "Maximum speed. And may whatever gods they worship have mercy on their souls, because we certainly will not." 2,000 ships of war activated their engines and leaped into hyperspace. The reckoning had begun. Warlord Scythe stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Vengeance, and watched his border fleet assemble at the Varath's Gate relay station. 400 warships, the finest vessels in the Dominion Navy, formed a wall of death between human space and the core worlds. He was not worried. The Dominion had conquered 100 species with far greater numbers and technology. What could these young humans possibly throw against 400 ships of the line? His answer came when the hyperspace sensors began screaming warnings. "Warlord," his tactical officer shouted with fear in his voice. "Massive hyperspace signatures incoming. Count is still rising." Scythe strode to the sensor display and felt his blood freeze. "That cannot be right. Report the actual numbers." "I am trying, Warlord." The sensors keep climbing. The officer's hands trembled over his controls. 1,000 ships. 1,500. Still rising. The human fleet burst from hyperspace like a swarm of angry predators. 2,000 warships emerged in perfect formation, their weapons already charging, their hulls bristling with technology the Dominion had never seen before. "Impossible," Scythe roared. Human intelligence reported they had fewer than 300 military vessels. No one could explain how the humans had assembled such a force. No one could explain where these ships had come from. All they knew was that death itself had come to Varath's Gate. Admiral Wei Chun's voice echoed across every communication channel, heard by both fleets and broadcast across the galaxy. "Warlord Scythe, I am Admiral Chun of the Human Emergency Fleet. 6 days ago, you ordered your soldiers to harm children aboard the colony ship Meadowlark. My granddaughter was among them. She is 7 years old, and your troops threw her against the wall while your officers laughed." Her voice turned to ice. "Today, you answer for that crime. There will be no negotiation. There will be no surrender. Every Dominion soldier who laid hands on our children will die. Every officer who gave orders to harm them will die. This is not a war, Warlord. This is an execution." Scythe felt something he had not experienced since he was a young warrior facing his first battle, true terror. But he was still a warlord of the Dominion, and he would not cower before these lesser beings. "All ships, attack formation," he commanded. "Destroy these human vermin." The Battle of Varath's Gate would be remembered for 1,000 years. The Dominion fleet advanced with the confidence of a species that had never lost a major engagement. Their weapons fired in coordinated volleys, energy beams slicing through the darkness toward the human ships. But the humans did not fight like any species the Dominion had ever encountered. Human ships moved with terrifying coordination, each vessel seemingly aware of every other ship's position and intention. They dodged and weaved through Dominion fire while returning devastating volleys of their own. Weapons that the galaxy had never seen tore through Dominion shields like paper. One Dominion cruiser reported that its shields had been penetrated by some kind of kinetic projectile traveling at a fraction of the speed of light. Before they could understand what had happened, another projectile struck their reactor and turned the ship into an expanding bowl of fire. "What are these weapons?" Scythe demanded. "Unknown, Warlord. Our shields are designed for energy weapons. These projectiles simply punched through them. The humans had brought mass drivers to a laser fight, and the results were catastrophic. But it was not just their weapons that terrified the Dominion. It was how the humans fought. One human destroyer took critical damage to its engine systems, leaving it drifting and helpless. Instead of surrendering or evacuating, the crew aimed their ship at a Dominion battlecruiser and activated their emergency thrusters. The destroyer slammed into the larger vessel at tremendous speed, destroying both ships in a brilliant explosion. A squadron of human fighters found themselves out of missiles and low on fuel. Rather than retreat, they flew their small craft directly into the bridge towers of Dominion capital ships, killing themselves to take their enemies with them. Human Marines boarded a crippled Dominion cruiser. Instead of capturing the crew, they fought room by room, corridor by corridor, accepting no surrender and giving no mercy. The footage from that ship would haunt Dominion soldiers for generations. Scythe watched his fleet crumble and could not understand what he was seeing. They are throwing away their lives. Why are they so willing to die? An old admiral who had served alongside the Broknath during the human border wars answered him. Because they do not care about victory, warlord. They care about revenge. Every human out there is willing to die if it means taking one more of us with them. That is what we unleashed when we hurt their children. 9 hours after it began, the Battle of Varathgate ended. Of the 400 Dominion warships, 17 survived by fleeing into hyperspace. The humans had lost 300 ships, but they had won a victory so complete that it shocked the entire galaxy. And they were not done. Admiral Chun did not pause to celebrate. She did not stop to repair damaged ships. She ordered the fleet forward, deeper into Dominion space. Their first target was the Meadowlark. The colony ship had been brought to a Dominion military base for processing. Human Marines assaulted the base with savage fury, tearing through Dominion defenders like a force of nature. When they reached the cargo bay, where the colonists were being held, the humans finally stopped fighting. Soldiers who had shown no mercy to Dominion troops fell to their knees and wept as they embraced the people they had come to save. Admiral Chun pushed through the crowd until she found a small figure lying on a medical cot. Lily Chun looked up at her grandmother with tired eyes and managed a weak smile. "Grandma? You came for me?" Wei Chun gathered her granddaughter in her arms and held her tight. "Of course, I came, little one. Humanity will always come for its children. Always. But the rescue was just the beginning." The fleet continued its advance, hunting down every soldier and officer connected to the Meadowlark assault. Warlord Scythe fled from system to system, but the humans followed him relentlessly. They finally cornered him on a small moon at the edge of Dominion space. His flagship was crippled, his crew dead or dying around him. Human Marines cut through his bridge doors and stormed inside. Scythe raised his hands in surrender. "I yield. I am a prisoner of war. The Galactic Convention demands." Admiral Chun stepped through the smoke and debris, her eyes burning with cold fury. "The Convention protects soldiers. You stopped being a soldier when you ordered your troops to hurt children." She raised her sidearm. "This is for Lily. This is for every child your monsters terrorized." The shot echoed across the bridge, and Warlord Scythe fell. But humanity's reckoning was far from over. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Varathgate, and the galaxy had been transformed. The Dominion of Eternal Stars, once one of the most powerful civilizations in known space, had ceased to exist. Not because humanity had destroyed them, though they certainly could have. The human fleet had stopped at the edge of Dominion core space, their thirst for vengeance finally satisfied after every soldier involved in the Meadowlark assault had been brought to justice. No, the Dominion fell because the rest of the galaxy turned against them. Every species that had watched the footage of Dominion soldiers beating human children felt something shift in their hearts. Every civilization that had witnessed humanity's terrible response understood a simple truth. Any species that would harm children deserved whatever fate befell them. The Valari Collective severed all diplomatic ties with the Dominion. The Broknith Empire closed their borders and refused all trade. Even species that had been Dominion allies for millennia looked at what had happened and quietly backed away. Within 3 months, the Dominion economy collapsed. Their fleets had no fuel. Their factories had no materials. Their people had no food. World after world declared independence or sought protection from other powers. By the 6-month mark, the Dominion existed only in history books. And in its place, something new emerged. The Galactic Council called an emergency session, unlike any in its history. Representatives from over 200 species gathered to discuss what they had witnessed and what it meant for the future. Ambassador Velana of the Valari Collective stood before the assembly and proposed a new doctrine that would reshape galactic civilization. "We have all seen what happens when children are harmed," she declared. "We have all seen how humanity responded to the attack on their young. And we have all asked ourselves a terrible question. What would we do if it were our children?" She looked around the chamber at faces of every shape and color. "I believe the answer is the same for all of us. We would burn the galaxy to ash if it meant protecting our young. This is not a human trait. This is a universal truth of all sentient life." She raised a document high above her head. "I propose the protection of young doctrine. Any species that deliberately harms the children of another species will face immediate and total isolation from galactic civilization. Every signatory nation will sever all ties, close all borders, and refuse all contact. The offending species will be left alone to face the consequences of their actions." The vote was not even close. 198 species signed the doctrine that day, and more would add their names in the months that followed. For the first time in galactic history, the protection of children had become a universal law enforced by the entire community of civilizations. On Earth, the celebrations were muted. Humanity had won a great victory, but the cost had been high. 300 ships lost at Varathskate, with thousands of brave sailors and soldiers who would never come home. The scars of what they had done and what had been done to them would take generations to heal. President Chen Wei addressed humanity in a broadcast that reached every human world and colony. "We did what we had to do," he said with weariness heavy in his voice. "We showed the galaxy what happens when you harm human children. But I hope we never have to show them again. I hope that the lesson has been learned and that no species will ever make the same mistake." He paused and his expression softened. "We are not monsters. We are parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles who love our children. We chose peace because we believed in a better future. We only chose war because they gave us no other option." His voice grew firm. "Let the galaxy remember this. Humanity will always extend our hand in friendship first. We will trade and explore and cooperate with any species that treats us with respect. But threaten our children, and you will see what lies beneath our peaceful exterior. You will see the warriors we keep hidden. You will see why no species should ever mistake our kindness for weakness." Far from Earth, on the garden world of New Eden, the colony ship Meadowlark finally reached its destination. The colonists who had suffered so much looked out at rolling green hills and crystal blue waters and felt hope stir in their hearts. Little Lily Chun stood at the observation window, her arm still in a cast from her injuries. Her grandmother, Admiral Wei Chun, stood beside her, having retired from the military for the second and final time. "It is beautiful, Grandma," Lily whispered with wonder in her eyes. "Yes, it is, little one. This is your new home. This is where you will grow up and play and learn and become whatever you want to be." Lily looked up at her grandmother with the innocent curiosity of childhood. "Grandma, why did those aliens hurt us? Did we do something wrong?" Wei Chun knelt beside her granddaughter and took her small hands in her own. "No, sweetheart. You did nothing wrong. Sometimes bad people do bad things for bad reasons. But do you know what else is true? What? Good people will always fight to protect you. Your mother and father, your aunts and uncles, me, and millions of humans you have never met. We all fought to bring you home. We will always fight to keep you safe. That is what families do. That is what humanity does." Lily smiled, and for a moment, all the pain and fear of the past months seemed to fade away. "I love you, Grandma. I love you too, little one. More than you will ever know." In the years that followed, historians would debate the meaning of what came to be known as the Dominion War. Some said it proved that humanity was a dangerous species that the galaxy should fear. Others argued it showed that humans were fiercely protective and would be powerful allies. But one interpretation became accepted by nearly everyone who studied those terrible events. Ambassador Kethral, stripped of his rank and exiled to a remote colony world, gave one final interview before disappearing into obscurity. When asked what lesson the galaxy should learn from the Dominion's fall, he stared into the camera with haunted eyes and spoke words that would be quoted for centuries. "We thought humans were soft because they chose peace. We did not understand that peace was a choice they made every single day. We did not understand what lived beneath their friendly smiles." He shuddered at memories he would never escape. Other species fight for territory or resources or pride. Humans fight for their children, and they will sacrifice anything, destroy anyone, tear apart the very fabric of civilization itself to protect their young. His final words became a warning passed from species to species across the galaxy. You can fight humanity and survive. You can insult humanity and be forgiven. You can even kill their soldiers, and in time, there may be peace. His voice dropped to a terrified whisper. But you do not ever harm their children. Do you understand? Never. Because what comes next is something no species should ever have to face. What comes next is humanity with nothing left to lose. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and it would never forget.